As a follow-on to the previous video about the walk cycle and how to create it, I'm going to make a video now about how to link our character into a new scene and how to bring prepackaged animations like the walk cycle into that new scene and then use them in the NLA editor. Stands for nonlinear animation. So let's get started. This is kind of where we left off on the last tutorial. However, I should note really quickly that I'm back in Blender 2.93 here instead of Blender 3.1, which we used in the previous video. And the reason for that is I have had trouble bringing animations from Blender 3.x back into Blender 2.9x. So I've remade my walk cycle here in Blender 2.93. And I should note that the process of linking that we're going to do here, that I'm going to demonstrate, works differently in Blender 3.0 and beyond. So the process that I'm going to show here for linking and making a proxy is only going to really be applicable to Blender 2.93. However, that's what my students are still using right now, so this tutorial is primarily for them. And anybody else using the current LTS long-term support version of Blender. So let's get started. Here we have our walk cycle. You can see that we have our dope sheet open. I should note that one change that I would make to the walk cycle compared to the last video that I didn't really do in the last video. One thing that I like to do is I like to make this back and forth motion. If you watch this left foot here, when it's the traction foot, when it's down on the ground and it's moving back and forth, I like to interpolate those motion keyframes in a linear fashion so they don't ease in and ease out, which would the easing in and easing out basically means that the character, in order to keep their feet planted on the ground, would have to speed up and slow down a little bit with every step. Because the foot's motion speeds up and slows down. So let's have a look at the graph editor really quick on that foot, and really quickly we're going to fix that so it's easier to make this character actually move in space. So here's our graph editor. Here are all of our foot keyframes. So really quickly, let's determine if we're using a local axis or a global axis. So I'm going to uncheck the Y location on this foot. Okay, and it's actually the Z location. This is a local axis, so it's the Z location. You can see it quit moving back and forth. The Z location is what we need to actually make linear here. So I'm going to just hide all of these other keyframes, and we're just going to look at the Z location keyframes here. All I have to do is go down to my key menu, and under interpolation mode, I'm just going to change that from Bezier, which is the default, to linear. And then I'm going to turn the other keyframes back on visible. Go and do the same thing on the right foot. We'll just make that Z location visible. Change our interpolation mode to linear. And that will make it a lot easier to keep that character firmly glued to the ground when the character's walking. And you can see that the aesthetics don't change much. It just basically means that the feet move back and forth at a constant speed. All right, so at this point we can collapse our graph editor. We're back in the dope sheet here, and what we're going to do first of all is we're going to save this walk cycle as an action strip. So within the dope sheet options, I have a number of different types of dope sheets, one of which is called the action editor. So I'm going to use my little menu here to change my dope sheet into an action editor. And it doesn't look that different, but it does give me a couple of extra buttons, push down and stash. And also this little guy here, which allows me to actually name my action. And that's really, now that I have my action made in a way that I'm happy with, that's really all I have to do. So I'm going to call this rain walk cycle. And the other thing that I'm going to do that is pretty important is this little shield button here. That gives this a fake user. Blender purges unused data when you save and close. So I'm going to give this a fake user so that Blender views this walk cycle as being used. And then I can close it. And at first blush, that's kind of a scary thing because my character quit moving here. And so it seems like, well, I deleted my animation, but I haven't. All I've done is I have just put it away. So if I open it back up, you can see I've still got that walk cycle there, but I can click the little X and close it and put it away. All right, so next I'm going to make a couple of other action strips really quick, and they're just going to be simple, easy action strips. So I might make one for the arms, for instance. Maybe we'll bring this, well, let's turn on our auto key here actually. And I'm going to just set a location and rotation keyframe down here. And then maybe after 15 frames, we're going to have Rain bring up her arm. We're probably going to have to play with the pole targets here. We'll have her give a little salute. And actually our pull targets seem to be okay so far. No, that elbow's too far back. Okay, so this is where I want the hand to be, roughly. Maybe a little more of an angle in. And we're pushing the thumb into the temple, so we'll take care of that in a minute. But I'm going to move the pull target here. So that's this guy, and it determines where the elbow is pointing. Now, I've keyframed that on frame 15, but not on frame 1. So basically, you can see that if we go back to frame 1, that has our elbow pointing in an odd way. So I need to give that an opening keyframe as well. So I'm going to just Alt-G, undo the move that I did on it, and that puts it back. So now we've got a first position and a salute position, and I think we need an in-between because this isn't a very natural way to bring up your hand. So we're going to swing her hand out here a little bit and maybe twist it up just a touch. Okay, and there we go. That seems a little bit better. At least for our demo purposes, that's going to work. Okay, and now we need to fold in that thumb so that it's not penetrating into her head. So let's do that really quickly. I'm going to say by right here, we're going to want it folded. So let's just rotate that. We'll rotate it here. Actually, that doesn't look very natural to me. I'm going to, there we go. And maybe I'll just take a second, kind of bring her fingers together. Okay, that looks a little better. So by frame 11, basically she's there. We no longer have the issue with her thumb. But again, we've only made one set of keyframes, so we need to undo all those rotations and movements for frame 1. Okay, so our hand starts out pretty relaxed. Then it goes into that sort of salute position. And by frame 15, we're there. I'm going to have her just hold that position for a second, so we'll just duplicate that frame over for a few frames. And then we're going to have her kind of snap out. Then come back. Then I'm going to duplicate our in-between hand position, move it back down. We'll put our end out here just a little farther. We'll make this 40 frames long. And then we'll duplicate our beginning position back at the end for both the pull target and the hand. All right, let's see how that plays. Okay, and I like that little pop out, but I think she needs to hold that position a little longer. So let's duplicate this hand position here. And let's also duplicate our elbow pull target here so that her elbow doesn't start unbending till she puts it back down. And of course, we need to extend our playhead out a little farther. Okay, and I think she can probably drop her hand a little faster. Okay, so I'm going to be satisfied with that for now. It's not great, but it's good enough for the demo that we're doing here. So I'm going to call that rain salute, give it a fake user, and close it out. All right, so at this point we have our character. I'm going to turn off auto keyframe and just return our character to her T-pose. So one other thing I'm going to do while I'm in here, and this seems to be a quirk of newer versions of Blender, or maybe it's a feature somehow. But I'm going to take both of these action strips that I made, and I'm going to open the NLA editor here. You can see that we've got kind of an action stash down here for all of these actions that are already here on Rain. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stash each of these action strips that we made. So there's our walk cycle. And now I'm going to open the salute, and we're going to stash that as well. And we're going to save that change also, because otherwise I don't think our action strips will show up when we actually link the character in. All right. Okay, and now I'm just going to start. This is how you link a character in. I'm just going to start a new scene. Delete my default cube as one does, and I'm just going to make a little plain background here. And then I'm going to link my character in. The advantage of linking your character in is that if you have a character that belongs in multiple scenes, let's say you're making a short film or an animated feature or something, and you've got your main character, and halfway through the production, somebody decides, you know, this character's hat is the wrong color, and it really needs to have blue polka dots on it. You don't have a separate copy of that character in every scene. It's just linked back to a master copy. And you can change the color of the hat on that master copy, and it will update in every scene that links to it. So linking is a very, very important skill for anybody who's actually going to be using assets in a production environment, even if it's just your own kind of personal production environment. So I'm going to go to File and click on Link. And then we'll go down and find Rain version 2_3 for linking 2022. We'll double click to browse into that file, and then we're going to go into the collections, and we have this CH Rain collection. Everything we need is in that collection. All these other collections, well, some of them are sub collections of this collection, so they'll come in as well. But just because I know how the original file is organized, I know that this is the collection that I need. So make sure that you organize your files properly up front. Put everything that you want into a collection. Double click, and of course here's our character. And we can't actually really do anything with this character yet. We can move the character, but we can't really pose the character. We can't select the bones. And this is the part, this is a part that is specific to Blender 2.9x and before. This changes with Blender 3, but for Blender 2.9, I'm going to go to my Object menu, and I'm going to go to Relations, and I'm going to click on Make Proxy. Now, in Blender 3.0 and beyond, I would click Make Library Override, and that behaves a little bit differently. But for now, I'm just going to click on Make Proxy, because that's what we do in Blender 2.9x. And it's going to ask me, what part of this collection do you want to make a copy of, or a proxy for? And it's going to be the rig. I want to make a proxy for the rig so that I can actually pose and change the rig. It's not just linked back. It's actually, I have a proxy object for it here. So I'm going to click on there. You can see that the selection changes a little bit. And on this proxy, which I have in my outliner here, I can enter pose mode. Pose mode. There we go. And I can now pose the character. Okay, so with that, we're now going to open up our NLA editor, nonlinear animation. So here we have our chrain proxy, and I'm going to add an action strip, and you can see that my rain walk cycle is in there now, and that's because I stashed it. So if I click that, this character now has the walk cycle, and it's only 30 frames long. In order to actually use that really effectively, we need to do a couple of things. We're going to tap N to open our menu here and select our walk cycle. And over here, we have a few options that are kind of important to note. We have an extrapolation method for this whole track. Right now it's set to hold. That's why we have this kind of orangey area here. Its blending mode is set to replace. That means anything underneath this action strip that has keyframes on the same bones that this action strip has keyframes. So for instance, like this foot bone is keyframed on this walk cycle. If something underneath it keyframes the foot bone, this walk cycle will replace it. That's what that blending mode means. We also have combine and add and subtract and multiply. You can kind of guess what those do based on their names. We also have a strip tab here, and it has an extrapolation method just for this strip, not for the whole track, and a blending mode. We also have blend in and blend out. Those are kind of handy features that we're going to use in a little bit. We can reverse it. Down here under action clip, we have some important options. We also have this repeat option here. So if I repeat this action strip enough times, then it will just kind of keep cycling until my playback area runs out. Okay, so let's mix some action strips now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another track. And you'll note that this new track is above our old track. And so here I'm going to put our little salute action. And I'm going to say maybe about frame 80 we ought to have Rain do her little salute. So my track is selected. I'm going to add an action strip. And there's our salute action. And it comes in, and you'll see that it has a replace and hold forward, extrapolation, and blending mode as well. So let's kind of see what that does. Just straight out of the box. We're walking. Okay, and now you'll see afterward, Rain's hand, her right hand isn't moving anymore. And that's because of our extrapolation mode. It's set to hold forward. That's why it's orange here. So anything that's keyframed right here, we just kind of hold with those keyframes afterward. So if I turn that on to nothing, you'll see that her hands kind of go back to business as usual because there's no extrapolation at the end there. We have kind of a little bit of a pop coming into there, into our second action, and that can be solved using the blend in and blend out parameters. So I'm going to say blend this in over the course of about 5 frames, and what that will do is it will just increase and decrease the influence of this action strip over 5 frames at the beginning and the end. You can see it gave us little diagonal rubber bands showing the length of that blend in and blend out when we did that. So now when we do that, the hand doesn't pop, it kind of eases in and it eases out, which is kind of nice. Okay, so that's basically how we're going to use the action and nonlinear action editor in a basic way. And from here we can set up a camera, we can set up lights, we can render this out, we can add more action strips, and I hope that's helpful.